Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Today, we are going to go over what is called or known as the drama triangle. If you watched my previous video on understanding roles, this is going to make a lot more sense to you. You can do this video without having the other one. You can just use this as a freestanding video. However, I highly encourage that you go watch my video on roles. It just makes this one a lot easier to do. So as always, we're going to just basically dive right in. Questions, comments, concerns, anything. If you watched my videos before, just email me at utlcsw@gmail.com. As always, education, one-on-one sessions, all of that can be provided. You can also book those at my website at www.redefinedtherapyandcoaching.com. But for today, we're just going to go ahead and dive right into the drama triangle. The drama triangle is probably one of my favorite things to teach because it is a lot of information, but once you get it, it's actually really, really easy to kind of work with. So I really like this one. So what is the drama triangle? The drama triangle is a model developed by Dr. Stephen Cartman. I believe that he originated this or came up with this in the 50s, I believe, if I remember correctly, like 1956. So it's been around for a while. And it is a model to help people understand the dysfunctional roles that people fall into during conflict and or problem solving. So you can see that helps individuals understand dysfunctional roles, that word roles. So this is why I encourage you to watch my video on what your role is and kind of like the role within your system in my previous video, because this will make a lot more sense if you watch that. But essentially, you don't have to. All of us fall into some kind of problematic role in conflict or problem solving if we have not used the skills to get out of them. So that is what this is. So there's three roles. So the drama triangle, you can think of 3 points on a triangle. There's three roles that people tend to adopt or fall into during conflict and problem solving. Individuals will typically kind of go through all three, right? It's a triangle. But predominantly, individuals typically stay in one role, or they're drawn to one role. And even when we're not within problem solving or conflict, people will still tend to be in one of these roles. Like people tend to take one role and kind of like house there and just stay there. Even during times of non-problem solving or non-conflict times, they'll still kind of sit there. So you're going to kind of see what that is. So all this is three different roles that become very problematic for people. Okay, so without even getting into the characteristics, you're probably going to be able to tell just by the names of some of these roles that, oh, I can see so-and-so falls there, I fall there, my spouse falls there, on and on and on. So the three roles in the drama triangle is a victim, a rescuer, and a persecutor. Okay, again, just by knowing those three things, you could probably identify which one you kind of are, which one mom is, which one dad is, which one spouse is, brother, sister, aunt, whatever it is. You're going to be able to tell who kind of sits in these. Okay, so your victim, we're just going to go over a little bit of characteristics of each one. Your victim is the helpless one. Okay, consequences happen to them rather than because of their choices. They are typically the very under-responsible people within your system or your household or your family or your friendships. They blame other people for their problems and they depend on that savior, that rescuer. They always want to be rescued. They always want the validation. Okay. Anybody that knows me knows victims do not do well in my kind of therapy because I'm not going to validate things that don't make sense. Okay. Victim is a very hard role to get out of. Okay. The rescuer is the quote unquote, the fixer or the savior. They take on the responsibility of other people. They put the needs of everybody else first, and then they kind of push their needs to the side. They focus on other people so they don't necessarily have to look at themselves, and they yearn for a victim, right? Because their worth depends on how much they can save people, and victims are the ones that need the savior. Okay, so they kind of coincide. If you are a victim or you know somebody that's a victim, somebody in your household, family, friendships, relationships is a rescuer, and the rescuer might even be you, or vice versa. You might be the victim, somebody else might be the rescuer. Okay, persecutor, very last role. This is the attacker or the aggressor. They seek power. They're critical, rigid, resentful. They use fear to control, and they depend on a victim and or a rescuer. Okay, so they kind of depend on both because they have to exert that power and control. Again, if you look in your system, you're going to find all three of these roles within your system. If you have not watched my videos on roles and you're not understanding what system is or what system means when I say that, please go watch that video. You'll understand it a lot more. Okay, so that is what the 3 roles are and some of the characteristics. Now, what does this look like in real life? This is what we're going to go through next. We're going to break each one down just kind of little by little to show you just some little examples of how this shows up in real life. So someone in the victim role, this can look like someone with a very powerless mindset. And I've provided 3 little examples here. Example number 1, my boss continues to give me extra work and totally takes advantage of me. Okay, so they're not addressing the issue, they're just blaming their boss. You are the only person that can make me feel better. Okay, they're placing emotional responsibility on someone else and is not using their skills to self-soothe. I will never be able to move out, it's too expensive. They avoid taking proper steps to get to their goals. This is someone in a victim-like mentality that you might have seen. There's a million and one examples of this, but these are some of the ones that I see in therapy quite frequently. Okay, so that's just kind of what a victim can look like in real life. Okay, what does a rescuer look like in real life? This is the let me help mindset. Okay, so this is a parent always jumping in to save their kids from hurt with friends or activities of daily living or chores. So they don't allow their child to build their own autonomy. They fix the mistakes of others at work as they see them, but they don't address the mistakes as they're being made. So again, they're not addressing the root problem, they're just fixing it. Okay. They get everything done for their spouse, leaving their spouse with very little responsibility in the relationship, leaving them feeling underappreciated and burnt out, right? So they kind of become that rescuer role. This is kind of what a rescuer can look like. And I'm going to hurry and turn on my light. It looks like it's getting a little dark outside and the lighting is a little off. So let me hurry and turn on my light. There, that's a little better. Okay, persecutor. What can this look like in real life? Remember, this is the I'm not the problem mindset people. Okay, so some of the examples. If you would just listen, things would be better. So they're shifting blame to the other person, not using problem solving skills, very similar to the victim mentality. Okay, my kid would have better grades if they would just listen to my advice. So you're not focusing on building a relationship, but you're using power as a parent to say that. And I hate to tell you, you have no evidence to support that your kid would get better grades just because they listen to you. You have no evidence to support that. You're playing a power game. Okay. My employees don't ever stay on top of their work unless I am constantly watching them. This leads to controlling the behaviors of others out of fear. So because you're the boss, you know that you can exercise fear of, I'm going to fire you if you don't do this right, instead of really looking at what the real issue is and how you are possibly persecuting other people and making them victim when they don't even want to be victim. That can happen. You can become one of these roles when you don't want to, right? For example, I really try to stay out of these roles, but if someone persecutes me, if I don't use my skills, I can fall victim really, really, really quickly, even with all the skill sets in the world. Okay, so I don't want you to think that just because you have this information, everything's magically going to change. This takes a lot of work to kind of do. But I wanted you to see just some small examples of how this can play out in the real, like in real life. This is what it looks like. Okay. Now, when I do this in individual therapy and I kind of go through and I help people identify their primary role and possibly the roles of some other people that they might be having tension with. And it's like, great, I know what role that I am. I can understand the roles a little bit more, but now how do I get out of it? Okay. This is how you get out of it. There's 3 little questions on your screen. The question is in bold, and then so is kind of your role is in bold. And then underneath that is the question that you ask yourself to essentially get out of the role. Okay, so am I feeling helpless? If you ask yourself that question in any given situation, okay, so you have a situation. If you are like, I don't want to fall victim, persecutor, or rescuer, I really want to try and use a role that is healthy and not dysfunctional, I'm going to ask myself these 3 questions before I go in and solve the problem. So, am I feeling helpless? If your answer is yes, I am feeling helpless in this situation, that tells you that you are in the victim mentality. Okay? How do you get out of it? What can I do to create what I want or need from the situation? How can I take responsibility? How can I create this? What do I want for me? Okay, I will give you a personal example of this, and I don't talk about this very often because it's pretty hard to get into. I lost a partner in a car accident 3 weeks after I had a baby. After that, for about 2 years, I lived a life that was crippled with substance use, food addiction, doing things that I really should not have been doing that were really causing me a lot of harm because I was so stuck in that victim mentality. I was so helpless by what had happened. And it was very much why me, why me, why me, poor me, like screaming at the rooftop, look what happened to me. Everybody owes me this because this happened to me. And what I learned through that is nobody cares, really. I mean, as tragic as it was, nobody cared. I fell very victim. And it got to a point where I knew I couldn't live like that anymore. So what can I do to create what I want or need from that situation? I picked myself back up. I lost 102 pounds in 11 months, completely all natural. No GLP-1, no nothing. I lost all of that completely natural. And I picked myself back up and I went back to school. I got a master's degree in 5 years. I was a single mom of 2 kids. Living in poverty. I was making $14 an hour with 2 children. I had a very old car that at the time was paid for, so I didn't have a car payment. I was not able to get on food stamps, but food was a little bit of a different situation. One of my children was on Medicaid at the time. Like, I lived that way for a long time, basically the whole time I went back to school. But I created what I wanted. And since I've graduated, I have found a skill set that I think has been tremendously helpful to the people that come and see me, myself included. I've been able to rebuild a life because I was able to get out of that victim mentality. So I have a really hard time with people that stay in the victim mentality because I've been there. And this is why sometimes people would call it harsh. I call it tough love. The reason I am the way that I am with some of my clients that are stuck in the victim is I do give them some tough love because I've been there and I don't want to see someone live like that because it is so fixable. You have all the power and control to create what you want or need from a situation. I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight. I'm not saying it's going to happen in a year. I'm not saying it's going to happen in 5 years. But every day I got up and went to school, every day I got up and did a little bit something, that degree finally came in the mail. I finally got to walk. I finally got a job, like on and on and on and on. You don't have to stay stuck there. Okay. You go to the next block. Am I blaming someone or something else? So if you run into a situation, you find yourself blaming something or someone else, you're the persecutor. Okay. Right off the bat, it just tells you you're a persecutor. How do you get out of it? How can I take responsibility for my thoughts, feelings, and behaviors in the situation? Okay. So for example, not only during that time was I the victim, I also would fall persecutor a lot of the time because I wasn't necessarily blaming my partner, but I was blaming the fact, well, if he wouldn't have gotten in that wreck, I wouldn't have been in this situation. You don't know that, Ashley. You have no idea. You can't say that. You do not know that you wouldn't be in a similar situation or a worse situation had that not happened. Okay. So not only was I victim, I was blaming the fact that he died in a car accident. And that's why I was having these problems. Not true. Okay. How can I take responsibility for my thoughts, feelings, and behaviors in the situation? I kind of already told you what I did to take responsibility. I completely fixed my negative core belief system. I completely changed my thought process. I tapped into my emotions and truly processed what had happened, and on and on and on. So still today, I'm able to take responsibility and accountability for my thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. There was one time in therapy that I said something to one of my clients, and if they watch this video, they can attest to this, that they came in my office, they were highly suicidal. And I kind of looked at them and I said, you want to know what your problem is? Your problem is you don't really want to die. You're just comfortable with saying that because you don't see another way out. You don't really want to die. And they looked at me and said, I think that makes me really angry and I'm done talking to you. And they left my office. That was probably, I don't know, 2.5, 3 years ago, maybe something like that. I still see this person today. And we've actually talked about that many times about it was so right? Like they weren't taking responsibility for the way they thought, felt, and behaved. They were simply just falling victim and blaming all these things that had happened in their life and then victimizing themselves using suicidal ideation. They didn't really want to die. That really wasn't the problem the whole time. That's just how it manifested because they were a part of these dysfunctional roles. So if this person ever watches this video, you know exactly who you are. And I love you dearly. You've been a joy to work with. And I cannot wait to see where you take things now that you're out of these roles. So hopefully you watch one day. Last one, am I attempting to save or rescue someone in the situation? This means that you are the rescuer. Okay, how do we get out of this? What can I do to help this person feel more confident or capable in the situation? How can I empower this person? And then what do I need in the moment as well? right? Because if you're going to spend the time empowering somebody or helping someone more confident, you also have to take care of yourself. So I, as a therapist, have to be very, very, very careful that I don't fall into the rescuer. And let me tell you, it is very, very, very hard. Okay. All day, most of my day, not every person that comes and sees me, but most of the people that come and see me, I have to try and make them feel more confident and capable in situations. I do that by all of the videos I've provided with you guys. It goes a little bit more personal, obviously, when I see you one-on-one, but people bring me situations and I try to empower them through skills and core beliefs and the backpack and mindfulness and on and on and on. But at the end of the day, it's like, what do I need in the moment? Like, what is it that I need? Those of you that know me and see me on a regular basis know Diet Mountain Dew is my vice. If I do not have a Diet Mountain Dew, one Diet Mountain Dew a day, and I am pretty health conscious, so I don't really like to admit that I drink a Diet Mountain Dew every day. We just don't talk about it. But anybody that sees me knows that is kind of like my vice. And I get it every morning before I go into work. Okay. There's my hydro jug. Don't judge me. Yes, it's a 40 ounce. I know you can't see it because of my background. But I get a Diet Mountain Dew every morning because that is what I need in the moment before I walk in that door. It gives me comfort, makes me feel good. I like the taste of it. It's just my thing. But then when I get off work, my Diet Mountain Dew is gone. It's like, that doesn't just stop. What do I need in the moment? I have things that I do in session when things get really heavy that most of my people don't even realize that I'm doing, that what I need in the moment. Okay. Like, you have to do the same thing. If you are going to not rescue somebody, but if you're going to help someone be more confident and capable in a situation, you also have to take care of yourself or you're going to get burned out really, really, really quickly. Okay. So this is a simple question to ask yourself in any situation. It will give you what role you're in based on if you answer yes to the question, and then how to get out of it. Okay. We're going to take that a little bit deeper. Okay. Because when you get out of it and you answer those questions and you genuinely do them, the roles of the triangle change. So you're no longer a victim, a rescuer, a persecutor. You're no longer dysfunctional. The roles flip. So in the packet, if you want the packet, I'm totally free to email it to you. Just email me and I'll give it to you. The packet that I use actually takes the triangle with all three roles and it flips it upside down to show you what it becomes. Okay, so it essentially just becomes three different roles. For example, a victim becomes a creator, a rescuer becomes a coach, and a persecutor becomes a challenger. Okay, so the creator, they realize that they can rationally think about their options during conflict. They use gratitude. They acknowledge their strengths rather than focusing on weaknesses, and they take responsibility for their own triangle, thoughts, feelings, behaviors. Okay, if you go back to my story, I was once the victim. I became the creator of my world. I realized that I can rationally think about my options during conflict. I used gratitude. I acknowledged my strengths rather than just focusing on my weaknesses constantly. I took responsibility for thoughts, feelings, and behaviors because the way I thought, felt, and behaved regarding my husband's death or my partner's death had nothing to do with anybody but me. I took responsibility for that. I created the life that I wanted, and I continue to create that life. That's one reason I have created this private practice is I feel like there is a missing link in the therapy field, and I'm working so hard to get the word out there. I would love to teach large groups of people. Anybody that knows me knows that one of my dreams is to get on the Joe Rogan podcast. Joe Rogan, hit me up. We always laugh about it in session, and one day I'm going to get there. We'll see. I'm trying to create the life that I want based on the skills that I can offer to other people. Right? It doesn't ever stop. Just because you hit one goal doesn't mean you stop becoming the creator. And as conflict arises and comes my way, I can take responsibility for the way I think, feel, and behave. And I really try to teach that to people that come and see me individually. I really try to teach people, when is it worth getting involved with a conflict or a problem, and when is it not? How do we do that? I'm going to give you some examples of how this looks in real life when you flip the triangle from victim, rescuer, persecutor to creator, coach, challenger. I'm going to show you some of those real life examples. Okay, your coach. When you become a coach, not a rescuer, you actively listen without solving the problem. You allow other people to not only make mistakes, but learn from them without trying to intervene the negative consequences that could come to that person. And they use empowerment to help other individuals. Okay, for example, I have a teenager. If you have teenagers, you know that it's just a matter of time before either they get in a lot of trouble or they just get in trouble where it's like, oh, okay. I'll give you kind of a funny example. And my daughter's going to kill me for telling you guys this, so don't tell her that I told you. Okay. She went to a party with some friends at a convention center and had a lot of fun. Well, she comes home the next morning and her and all of her friends are beyond sick. One of her friends is in the ER. And come to find out, they were doing what are called caffeine shots. So they're too young to drink. So at these parties, they provide them monster energy drinks all night long with caffeine shots. Okay. We don't know exactly how much caffeine was in one shot, but we know that them at 16 and 17 years old took a lot of shots. We know that. They all came home the next morning, sicker than sick. One of her friends ended up in the ER. Instead of criticizing her and trying to rescue her, like, oh, you poor baby, come here. It was like, I listened to the whole story, even though in my head, I'm like, how could you be so stupid, right? Like I was not being very nice in my head, but you actively listen. I allowed her to make that mistake, but instead of hounding her, it was like, well, what did you learn from that? How did you not know that caffeine can do that? Like, where was your education lacking? I wanted to empower her to, what do you know now? What did you learn from this? How much caffeine is your danger zone? On and on and on. I didn't try to rescue her. Right? I never rescued her, ever. Like, I never went up and hugged her and was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry you're going through this. It was, do you see this as a mistake? If you do, why? Where was the education lacking? How did you not know that this was a problem? Like, I tried to coach her through it, which also becomes the challenger, right? Providing constructive ways to resolve this rather than hounding her, right? So I asked her, do you need to go to the ER? No? Okay, let me go get some Pedialyte. Let's start taking that and see how you feel. Let's maybe get you some sleep and see how that does. If you do throw up, let's watch your throw up output to see if we do need to take you in, right? Like, we're providing those constructive ways, right? Practice self-regulation. Even in my head, I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, seriously, what are you doing? What are you doing? Okay. Self-regulation. I had to regulate. I had to become very wise mind and provide those choices. Okay. So when, instead of being the persecutor, you become the challenger. So you can see how all of these kind of interweave together, but this is what the triangle becomes when you get out of it. Okay. This is what you want. You want to get out of these roles. Okay. What the new roles can look like before we do, I think I actually maybe did put the real life examples in this slide. Okay, so the creator. This can look like using, I did put them here. If we use the work example, right? Like, oh, my boss is just giving me too much work. He's just using me. He's taking advantage of me. I'm feeling overwhelmed and I realize I have not communicated that. I will set up a meeting with management to discuss this and find a more appropriate workload. That is what it looks like when you're the creator, not the victim. Nobody cares that your boss is taking advantage of you. The world does not care. The only person that is affected in that moment is you. So you need to be like, what do I need at this moment? What do I need to solve this problem? Well, you need to set up a meeting and tell them how you feel. Okay. They shift from victim to creator and they create their own reality. My own reality is I am totally okay with extra work, with whatever's going on, like so-and-so left the company or we're shifting management, whatever it is, I'm okay to take on extra work, but the workload needs to be appropriate. And if you don't ever communicate that, that's your fault, not theirs. Because your boss, even though they might be an asshole, they might not even understand that. And if your boss is that much of an asshole, maybe you're not at the right place. Just saying, do what works, right? Go watch that video. Okay. The coach, using the example of kind of jumping into the problems of the child. It sounds like you and your friends are going through a hard time. Can you think of some small steps to help short term? I am here to talk about it if it's needed. They shift from the rescuer to the coach and they coach the situation. They don't take over the situation. Okay. Like, I understand you and your friends are having a fight. What do you think that you can do in the short term right now while things get smoothed over? Just coach them. Right. I always like to use the example of, I have a younger daughter and she's pretty into cooking and baking. So every time we bake, and I don't know if you're a parent, you probably know this, they go to get the eggs out, right, to put in the cookie batter. And what's our first thought? Oh my gosh, they're going to get shells in there. Oh my gosh, they're going to get the shells. Here we go. Right. We got to watch for that. But if you jump in and rescue them and don't let them crack that egg, they learn that they can't do things by themselves. Instead of coaching them with, okay, this is how we crack it. We're going to crack it twice and see how good the crack is. And then you're going to put both fingers there and you're going to kind of push and pull at the same time so you don't get any shells in there. I'm going to coach you. And if you do see a shell fall in there, you want to get a spoon, we're going to scoop that out. You don't want any shells in there, rather than, oh, let me just do this part for you. You're teaching them that they can't do things by themselves. That's going to go into a stage of development problem, which I'm going to make a video about that. I have not made one yet, but I will. That causes a whole other issue. So make sure you're coaching, not rescuing. Take Challenger. Using the example of listening. I realize I am getting upset and not taking as much accountability as I should in the situation. So they shift from the persecutor to the challenger by acknowledging their own emotions, and they take a step back to ensure they're taking accountability. This is what a challenger does. This is companies that work really, really well, big companies, big entities that work well. The people that are in charge of those entities typically are challengers, not persecutors. That will make or break a business. We can all probably think of a boss that we've had. I know that I can think of a boss that was 100% persecutor all of the time, never the challenger, ever. They never took accountability for their own company. They blamed everybody else in the entity for not making them enough money, or this or that, or this or that. They never took accountability for their own stuff, right? So if we use the example, remember, of, well, if you would just listen to me, things wouldn't go bad. Or if you would just take my advice, you would have better grades. Remember, that was one of the examples. But if a parent's going to get that upset over grades and not provide feedback of, okay, like, why are your grades bad? Is there something going on? Do you need to take, a day break? Do I need to go talk to your teachers? Is there something going on at school? Like, whatever it is, providing all of this stuff, not taking accountability that I'm getting really upset right now and I might not have all the facts, they immediately just start persecuting. Guess what? Your kid's not going to get better grades. I'm here to tell you that right now. It's not going to happen. So that is what the roles can look like. That is the end of the drama triangle. Okay. So in a whole, the drama triangle is teaching you when you fall into a dysfunctional role and how to get out of it, how to become more functional. Okay. If you are looking for additional ways to use this model, if you are looking for the packet, if you want more education on this, if you want to do a one-on-one and kind of see how this pertains to your life individually and get some more insight on very specifics on your life and how to get through them, contact me. Okay. utlcsw@gmail.com. I do have virtual appointments available at my website, www.redefinedtherapyandcoaching.com. As always, thank you so much for your support in watching these videos. I hope you get something from them. So thank you truly from the bottom of my heart. This is my dream, and my goal is to eventually teach a larger group of people some of these things. And every subscriber, every like, any person that reaches out and does a session with me, all of that helps me tremendously to create the world that I want. And I could not do it without you guys and your support. So thank you truly for watching these. Join me in a couple weeks. We're going to start going over the stages of development. See you guys later.